Japan has the third largest economy in the world. Its economy is entirely dependent on the biggest companies in the country. All of them are in the automotive industry or they support the automotive industry. Japan's car companies are completely unprepared for the coming electric car disruption. 0.2% of Toyota's production and sales are electric cars. Its competitors or its rivals, the rest of the Japanese automotive industry, aren't doing much better than that. This year, its stock market has increased by a factor of 40%. Inflation is rampant. The Japanese government has been printing money like crazy. People in Japan have been desperately looking for a place to store their money. So they're doing it by investing in the stock market. Its companies are now more overvalued than they have been since something happened. Something very, very bad happened. The Japanese asset price bubble. The Japanese asset price bubble was an economic bubble in Japan from 1986 to 1991. In this bubble, real estate and stock market prices were greatly inflated. In early 1992, the price bubble burst. Japan's economy stagnated. The bubble was characterized by rapid acceleration of asset prices and an overheated economy, as well as an uncontrolled money supply and credit expansion. Things that are going on right now. Very similar events are occurring, and Japan has more debt than any country in the world. In fact, it has more debt than any country in the history of the planet. Incredibly, the biggest car maker in the world, which is also located in Japan, called Toyota, also has more debt than any company in history. By August of 1990, the Japanese stock index plummeted to half of its peak by the time of the fifth monetary tightening by the Bank of Japan. By late 1991, other asset prices were in freefall. Even though asset prices had visibly collapsed by early 1992, the economy's decline continued for more than a decade. This decline resulted in a huge accumulation of non-performing asset loans, causing difficulties to many financial institutions. The bursting of the Japanese asset price bubble contributed to what many call the lost decade. Japan's average nationwide land prices finally began to increase year over year in 2018, a 0.1% rise over its 2017 price levels. Feels like a bit of a negative news day today. What's going on here? Volkswagen say the roof is on fire and their car sales business is sick. Toyota and Stellantis are lobbying the US government because they don't have enough EVs to sell. And Ford has so much electric vehicle inventory that it's basically giving away money to people so that they can start buying their stock. Now, news comes that Mitsubishi is the second casualty in the last 6 months in China. It's closing up shop. It's running away from the world's biggest car market. When I say the biggest, I mean 1 in every 3 cars worldwide are sold in China. That's a pretty big market to leave. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. It's great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Sam Evans, and I'm coming to you from Australia. Welcome to all the new subscribers. Welcome back, everyone else. If you're new to the channel, we've done, 3,600 videos about that over the past 24 months since we basically started the channel. So Mitsubishi Motors have announced they're leaving China. All their assets they had in China, they're basically going to have a fire sale for those assets. There's quite a few assets there. I mean, to be honest, I don't think they're worth all that much anymore because they don't make EVs with those assets. And why are they leaving China? Why are they giving up on the world's biggest car market, which is, right next door to Japan? Well, here's why. They've admitted they can't keep up with the electric vehicle changes, with the disruption coming to the car market. So, I've been saying this for a long time. A lot of people are still in denial that this is happening. I can tell you now, they're not the first. Jeep already did the same thing last year, and they won't be the last. Eventually, there's a good chance that all Japanese automakers will be forced to do the same thing. I know, sounds crazy, but eventually disruption can kill companies who don't take it seriously, and the others are clearly not. This means Japan's EV reluctance, their decision to ignore the EV transition because they know better. They've known better. They know that customers don't want EVs, there's not enough minerals, has claimed its first casualty. Japanese automakers' reluctance to go all electric, according to the Electric website, is taking a toll on the nation's auto industry. Mitsubishi Motors revealed this week it's suspending operations in China due to its inability to keep up as EVs continue to take over the market. China continues to lead the industry in the transition to EVs. Information from the China Association of Automobile Manufacturers, CAAM, shows EV sales have reached 2 million vehicles for the first 6 months of this year, up 51.5%. The thing is here, the most interesting statistic here in my view is this, right? Of all the EVs manufactured, they're basically being made, almost all of them, I mean more than 90% of them being made by Tesla and Chinese car manufacturers. Legacy automakers are responsible. Of their sales, of their car sales, only 3% of them are electric. Of the local car companies in China, including Tesla, 60% of their sales are electric. It's amazing that none of these legacy automakers saw this coming because it's been happening in slow motion now for the last 10 years. EV sales in China, in fact, have increased by 51.5% year over year. Meanwhile, gas-powered vehicle sales continue to drop. They've fallen 7% over the past 6 months. Bank of America Securities head of Asia Pacific Basic Materials, Matty Zhao, sees China's EV market growing another 27% this year, reaching well over 30% of overall market sales, up from 26% last year. Some are predicting that number can grow to 50% within the next 2 years. In fact, a lot of experts within China are saying that. The shift comes after the Chinese government supported the transition with tax breaks for EV buyers, subsidies, and other policies that sparked growth in domestic EV makers. Now, those tax breaks, they're open to non-Chinese car companies. China didn't say, hey guys, we're only going to provide these incentives, these deals for local car manufacturers. They provided them for everyone. That's what shocks me the most about this. Why not take advantage of this free money? The Japanese just chose not to. Perhaps more importantly, says Electric, China is making it harder to buy gasoline-powered vehicles. The nation is implementing stricter vehicle emission standards, pressuring automakers to transition their lineups and clear internal combustion engine vehicle inventory. Now, in Shanghai and Beijing, the two biggest cities in China, it's very hard simply to register a gasoline-powered vehicle. If you buy one new, it's hard to register it. On average, it costs you about $10,000 to get a registration plate. If you've got an EV, you don't have to go through that process. So that adds to the fact that you don't get incentives at all for buying a gasoline-powered vehicle or a diesel-powered vehicle. In fact, they're being penalized. The Chinese government said that based on their rules, in the middle of this year, hundreds and in fact millions of cars sitting in inventory could not be sold. They would just rust away because legally they broke China's new emissions regulations. Those new emissions regulations, by the way, were put in place years ago. So these automakers like Mitsubishi and others, many others, knew they would be breaking China's rules. Now they just hoped, they basically called the Chinese government's bluff. They hoped that the Chinese government would go, okay, this is going to be an economic disaster here. We're going to have millions of cars that these companies can't sell. This is going to be a huge problem. So we'll just loosen the rules. We'll change the rules for them because this is going to be a massive problem. Now, the Chinese government they basically said, yeah, okay, you've called our bluff. It's true. We'll give you until the end of this year. And the car companies went, whoa. Mitsubishi's obviously going, whoa, okay, we are screwed. I don't think the Chinese government is going to keep on putting it off. I think at the end of this year, the game is over for these manufacturers in China. Mitsubishi, according to a memo released this week, know that it is dead in the water in China. Their sales have fallen drastically as China's auto market has moved to EVs. In the past few months, management and shareholders have tried to the best of our ability, they said, but due to market conditions and with great reluctance and regret, we must seize the opportunity to transition to new energy vehicles. The company will resurrect after going through trials and tribulations. It will resurrect itself. Now, isn't it kind of weird, they said, after a few months of doing our best? What about a few years of doing your best? What about planning, 5 years in advance for something that's clearly happening? No, we tried for a few months and it was too hard. So we're going now. That just sounds bizarre to me. Mitsubishi cited transition from internal combustion engine vehicles to EVs as the primary reason why sales are falling and are well below expectations. The interesting thing is Mitsubishi does make the Triton pickup truck, the Ute. They're very popular. Utes and SUVs, and pickup trucks, they're the fastest growing car segment in China. If Mitsubishi had just made an electric one, there's not many of those, by the way, in China, it would sell. They could probably sell 500,000 of them in China. They didn't do it. They could have, though. After peaking in 2019 at around 134,500 sales, which is it's actually about 15% of Mitsubishi's yearly sales, Mitsubishi sales have nearly vanished. I mean, this is insane. Look at this number. They've gone down to 34,500. Its sole EV, the Airtrek, sold only 515 units. But Mitsubishi is not the only Japanese car company that is struggling. Honda, Mazda, and Nissan sales have fallen drastically this year and last year as well. Mazda sales, in fact, are down around 60%. Nissan's are down 40%. And China is their most important car market. Personally, I'm just absolutely baffled to why Japanese automakers had so much hubris. Why would they not give customers what they want? Why do they keep on fighting them? Why not just say, that's what you want? Not a problem. You want a burger and you don't want meat? You want an egg? No worries, we'll cook you an egg. It's not really that difficult to work out. But instead, we saw so many reports that car companies know better than consumers. Japanese car companies have made these comments so many times now. That's what baffles me. If consumers want a product and the government is saying, we want you to sell that product because we don't want people dying. These health costs coming from the incredibly toxic air quality in China cost China billions and billions of dollars every single year. They know this. They're not idiots. They know what's happening. And they want to stop this. They want people to be able to breathe and not be getting cancers and all these kinds of health issues because of the pollution from all these cars. I mean, the biggest car market in the world, and it's just smogging out, making the air toxic in these places. This is not just about economics either. It's also about having a consideration for your people, the people in your country and their health. Mazda CEO Masahiro Moro echoed Mitsubishi's statement on China. He said this week, production output will be very low for the time being while pressure on profits is increasing. Although Mazda doesn't plan to scale back, he said, the important thing is to turn the tide and introduce electric vehicles one by one. I don't think that's going to work. I mean, Mazda are just too far behind, in my opinion. The time to start building those EVs and coming up with EVs was years ago. Instead, what have Mazda been doing? You've all heard of it, the news, I'm sure you have. They've been investing almost every spare cent they have into what? Internal combustion engines. In fact, they've gone more all in on internal combustion engines than anyone else with their Sky Active technology, which has improved their emissions and improved their fuel efficiency by about 3%. Cost them billions to get a 3% improvement. That to me is very strange. Now, Tesla and BYD and Aion and other EV manufacturers, it's tough for them. And the reason it's tough is not because there's not a lot of EV sales. EV sales continue to grow, but because there are so many EV manufacturers. So Mazda, I think the same thing will happen to them. I'd say within 18 months, Mazda will pull out of China as well. Could even be faster. The Japanese government are now realizing that Toyota has hoodwinked them. Toyota are in charge of the Japanese automotive industry. They've been in charge of it for a long time. Their CEO is almost always the president of the Japanese automotive industry, and they continue to almost dictate what those automakers do to an extent. And now the Japanese government realizes that they've been led astray. To try to get car manufacturers in Japan to make EVs, they're giving out 120 billion yen to fuel Toyota's EV plants. They're giving out, in fact, loans as well. They've given Nissan loans. They've given out, in fact, billions of dollars in loans. Nissan's debt now is rated at junk. They're trying to encourage their manufacturers to make EVs. But surely, if you're the Japanese government, you know that there is an economic tsunami coming to destroy your economy, utterly destroy it. And this is completely understating what is about to happen in Japan. This is going to probably bring down the global economy. It's going to be so bad because Japan's economy is still one of the biggest in the world. But considering the fact their entire economy rests on their automotive industry, more so than any economy in the history of the planet, probably in the history of the known universe, the Japanese economy is going to be devastated. It's going to happen before 2030. I don't know when it's going to happen, but at some point in time, I'm going to do all the numbers, crunch all the numbers, work out all the details, put it all together into a spreadsheet, and try to give you guys a heads up and a warning on when you should get out of the car market, when you should get your stocks out of everything. Because it will hit everyone. It's going to hit Tesla. It's going to hit BYD. It's going to hit battery companies. It's going to hit miners. It's going to happen because if you sink a ship the size of Japan, it's going to have effects on everyone. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And thank you for watching.